know you could prevent or delay the onset of a disease, even though your mom had it, your dad had it, and your grandpa had it? Stay with your lady Salome in this video as I speak to Dr. Xochitl Cortez-Gonzalez, a clinical pharmacist with over 13 years experience in clinical pharmacy and over 20 years experience in clinical research into epidemiology and epigenetics. As we talk about ways that you could prevent yourself from getting diseases, even though it runs in your family. Make sure you watch this video all the way to the end so that you'll be able to understand this concept and what you could do to delay these diseases or even prevent yourself from having them. Stay tuned. Hello viewers, welcome to Ezra Wellness, where you learn proven way to healthy living. Today I'm very excited because I do have with me Dr. Xochitl Cortez-Gonzalez one more time. And Dr. Xochitl, for those of you who don't know her, she's a clinical pharmacist with over 13 years of experience in clinical pharmacy. And she's also into research, clinical research, and she have over 20 years experience in that area into cancer, immunology, epigenetics. And today I'm very excited because Dr. Xochitl, we are going to talk about ways that you could delay or prevent an onset of diseases that runs in your family. I think it's very important because most of us, we think that because my mom had this, I need to get it. But today we're going to ask Dr. Xochitl that are we supposed to get them? So Dr. Xochitl, you're welcome to Ezra Wellness.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you
So much. So Dr. Xochitl, I want us to just go right ahead. Today we want to find out what is genetics, because we hear about this a lot. And I know it's big words and stuff, but what is it for us who don't know much about these areas?
Yeah, so genetics is when you conceive, when you have a baby, there is DNA that it's inherit, or the portion of DNA is the information. Genetics will be the information that the father and the mother puts together to form a baby. In this case, I'm a baby, everybody is a baby, right? So each human being has inherited information in the form of DNA that comes from parents, and those parents come from grandparents, and you keep going on and on and on. So this genetics have been mixed, imagine in a very nicely soup, and then you are a composition of all your ancestries, little pieces of this DNA, as it's called. And this DNA is called, it's also called genetic inheritance, or this is what you carry by birth, just by being with, being a human and being the son or the daughter of your parents.
Okay. So when we get this information or material from our parents, this is what makes me and you. And then the question is, can this material be changed in any shape or form? The ones that we got it from our parents.
Right. So they are, this DNA or the genetics are pretty much unchangeable. However, if we go very technical, there's ways to change it. There's virus that can change it. Mutations can happen. It's called mutations. Is like something that happens and breaks in our DNA and it gets replaced with something else. It can happen, but it's very unusual. Normally, what you inherit from your parents cannot really be changed as it is. And the topic today is going to be about how research or scientists have found that not because you got those DNA at that inheritance from your parents, that solid cannot be completely changed. There's other factors that can be changed, and that's what we're going to continue to talk about. But as the DNA itself very rarely can be changed. You already, for instance, the DNA of that codes for the color of your eyes, the color of your hair, if it's curly, if it's straight, that comes from your genetics. And as you know very well, it's hard to change unless you buy your lenses, or you buy your wig, or you straighten your hair, right? But it's that's an example, and we're going to continue to talk about this.
Okay. So those are set in stone that cannot be changed unless we try to do some artificial things.
Correct.
But then there is another term that they say epigenetic. So if you could explain that and what that one in relation to the genetics.
Absolutely. So more than 20, probably even 30 something years ago, scientists discovered that this DNA, this genes, so DNA makes genes, and a gene is, imagine the code to make your eyes look, in my case, brown, or my hair look brown. So epigenetics, it's the study of genetics, but what happens around that DNA or genes that you inherit from your ancestors, from your parents. So epi is from the Latin of around genetics. And what has been found over 30 or 40 years ago, since they started discovering that this new field is called epigenetics, is that there are certain factors that can stimulate the on and off of certain DNA or genes. So in other words, there are stops or starts type of functions that can make something be on and off, and that could be something that is related to a disease. It could be related to processes that can affect inflammation, can affect even just the normal functioning of our well-being, like the immune system, so it is a normal functioning of the body, having this gates. Imagine that you have a gate that has free access to this gene or DNA to be able to, continue to work and be expressed, as we call it. So what in your genome, that's how it's called, all this accumulation of genes, of DNA that you inherit from your ancestors, you actually have what is called a phenotype. The phenotype, even if it sounds like a big word, is literally just the expression. So imagine that you have information stored in the computer, okay, that's you, it's called DNA. But when you get in the computer and you turn it on, there's only certain programs or softwares that you turn on command, and that's what you can see. If you don't turn them on, those programs, even if you have the DNA, the information to show it off, it may never turn on because you don't trigger the button or you don't turn it on in your computer, okay? So your body, epigenetics is literally this functioning or regulation of what is being seen and what is not being seen.
Okay. So then when you're looking at it, an example will also be like being the App Store or the Google Play Store. There is a lot of information in there, but unless you download it, you will not have it on your phone. But you still have access to all these applications.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, good. So then the question is, can you give us examples of these epigenetics when we talk about them? What are the things that goes in there?
Sure. So it has been, so there is some epigenetics printing, and you may find big words if you ever Google it. Some of it is methylation, some of it is deacetylation, and it's just the way that your chromosomes are put together. So as you may know, by the information that we get bombarded about health, and when you go to your doctor, they ask you, oh, what runs in your family? What did your mother had, or what type of diseases, who has passed away from what diseases, right? So it is very important. Doctors like to know if you had a family with cancer, or with diabetes, or hypertension, or heart disease, because it is well known that there is DNA, genetic composition from a predisposition to develop this type of diseases. So the important part that I want to deliver as far as epigenetics is that even if you carry all this information in your genes, in your DNA, does not mean that you have to, or is something that you will turn on, just like the computer or the app, unless there's everything is set in place, like the factors, you turning on the computer or your phone and turning on that. Now, this trigger of turning on genes or this diseases or predispositions that you already have, now we understand with all the scientific work is that it can be determined or be activated or silenced by our environmental factors, many environmental factors.
Okay, so you want to give examples of those environmental factors, or just you could just go down through them, and then we're going to take a specific disease. I think that will make more sense to us.
Absolutely. So we know that the very classic will be an exposure to a toxic, right? A chemical, toxic chemical that can affect our body, can actually affect the way our epigenetics react, or epigenetic access or opening of this gate, activation of certain things or silencing certain things. That's why you can understand how maybe some tumors or cancer can be developed by exposures to certain even environmental toxins, like high mercury in the environment, or radiation, for instance. If you heard of radiation exposure. So, but in a more mild way, in more chronic way or long-term way, food can also affect deficiency of nutrients or excess of certain how would I say it, food that can affect our flora. It creates a imbalance in our body, and if that is continuously present in our diet or present in our lifestyle, that we can start having some changes, either opening or closing of certain genes. And some genes or DNA needs to be all the time stopped or silenced, and some other need to be open, right?
Yeah.
So most of the times, in one of the diseases that we can talk about is diabetes, but going into other factors that can affect epigenetics is stress. High levels of stress is very well known, how diseases can develop after having a major stress in your life. And of course, there's things that you cannot avoid, right? Like, if you're going through a bad divorce, you need to go through it. If you unfortunately go through a very sad loss of a member of a family, you cannot just say, oh, I'm back in shape. You can go through your morning and try to compensate with doing something healthy, do your prayer, meditation, whatever it is that makes you, feel or get back to your normal being, or at least some centered. So this could be some of the examples. And then maybe this is a good time to talk.
So from the examples that you're given, so far you've given toxic chemicals, we're talking about food, we're talking about sleep, and then we're talking about stress. So all these are things that are in our environment or around us that is going to show how our genes is expressed. So these are things that are in the epigenetics. So then we could see that things that are in the epigenetics are things that we could actually change or modify from the way that you are explaining it. So now then I want you to give us, we want to do two diseases just so that we bring this whole thing home. Let's say diabetes run in my family. My grandmother had it. My great grandmother had it. My mom had it. Does it mean I have to get diabetes, or there is something that I could do about it so that I don't have to get diabetes?
Absolutely. So diabetes is one of those genetic predisposed type of diseases.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you carry the information in your body, the genetics,
Yeah.
you still prevent diabetes happening to you.
Yeah.
How? Um, by doing some of the stuff that we just mentioned. So anything that will encourage a good, healthy lifestyle. I forgot to mention exercise. Exercise is extremely important. I think the latest research is at least 20 minutes a day of brisk walking is good enough, and maybe 2 or 3 days a week of some kind of a cardio exercise that you can actually feel your heart pumping very, very hard. And if we dissect all the research that is out there, you would notice that there's what your grandma, what we all knew about, the tradition, our traditions and muscle cultures is, people were active, were not meant to be sedentary, we're supposed to eat whole foods versus processed foods. And the more you continue to eat, let's say, or have a good lifestyle and eat whole foods, your body will preserve that genetic in a silent mode. These diseases don't necessarily need to show up or show into your body as a disease until maybe very late in life, or maybe not at all.
Mm-hmm.
There is many examples. One of my own example is my entire ancestry are diabetic, or they were diabetic. My grandparents, my parents, my older brother was diagnosed with diabetes almost 8 years ago. And I've been taking care of myself for over 20 years, very religiously, with my diet, with some supplementation and exercise, and keep my stress levels down as much as I can. And I haven't, thank God, developed the diabetes. And I want to continue that way. To me, we're not identical twins, but genetics, I'm pretty sure we both are born from the same family. So I'm sure I have everything ready to go. But I know that as long as I can just take care of myself, I can stop that from happening, or at least prolong my healthy lifestyle, my quality of life, as long as I can.
Yeah. Oh, so that means those of you listening to us, it doesn't matter, even your mother, your sisters, everybody have certain disease because it's in the family. That doesn't mean you have to get it. You could do something about it. There are things that you could turn on and turn off so that you keep this genes, which is a diabetic gene, down under control so that you don't turn it on. So you have diabetes in your app store, but you don't download it, depending on what you do, so that you can turn it on. I love that. So Dr. Xochitl, then the next question, let's talk about another disease, high blood pressure. I know that one too is another common one out there that runs in family, and they always ask, oh, your mom had high blood pressure, your dad had blood. Would you talk into why mom had it and why possibly a child would express the same gene? What are some of the things that you think would do that? Mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely. My family also runs high blood pressure and diabetes, both of them together.
Yeah.
And of course, exercise is one of the big ones, and a good, healthy diet. I continue to say that just because when we eat too much fast food or processed food, your body is continuously trying to work very hard with literally nutrient deficient food.
Yeah.
So there's not enough nutrients and all this, what you think is food, that your body tends to compensate. So it eventually, for instance, in hypertension, there's also a lot to say about supplementation. So vitamin D is a big one, and I'm a big fan of vitamin D because vitamin D is one of our major hormonal slash supplement or vitamin that is, it works almost in everywhere in our body, and it's in charge of activating a lot of genes that should be on, that is for health, for keeping us well, not for disease. So just think about vitamin D, for instance. If vitamin D is absent or is we're deficient, then there's some genes that should be on all the time. They should be always expressed so we can be well and balanced, but those genes are now turned off because we don't have enough, gate openers, enough fingers to push the buttons. So that is a very good example of how disease can happen. And hypertension is just one of them. Diabetes is another one. Cancer is another one. It's the big elephant in the closet that, unfortunately we try to blame it on something else, but cancer can even occur in someone that has no predisposition, but it could be affected by your lifestyle, by your diet or nutrients that are lacking in your in your body. So and hypertension and all heart disease is linked also with exercise and how sedentary you are. So sleep is also a big one. There is many studies about if people stop sleeping well for over, I think 3 days or 3 nights. So let's say the graveyard type of workers, the people that work overnights, if they were to do that in 3 nights in a row, they become meaning with markers, they do blood work, pre-diabetic, their blood pressure start going high. Okay, and this is very well done in in research studies. So we already know that non-sleeping affects us tremendously.
Yeah.
And that is just a sleep. Now they done something like that with very highly processed food, in which you actually can see as elevation of blood pressure if you just only do processed food. That I hope no one in this world is just doing
Hopefully.
Exactly. Or and same thing with diabetes. People can go into what they call pre-diabetes if they continue to do a pattern of bad choices for too long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, wow, wow. So we do have the options to turn on and turn off our genes, if you will put it that way, not to make it that sound that simple, or let's say dim the switch on it so that we don't express the diseases, even though our parents had it. And one thing that I want you to just touch on is that, one day we say that something runs in the family, we also tend to pick everything in our family. I think that is also one of the, so if you want to talk about that for a little bit, that is one of the reasons why we are going to express the genes, because, we eat the way our ancestors eat. So if you want to talk about it for a little bit there.
Absolutely. So I guess that there's so many, it's not just the genetics, just as you said, it's not what we carry on biologically. So you have this newborn baby. And if you, let's say this newborn baby, it's very naive, doesn't know how to eat. You need to teach him how to eat, how to even behave, how to, you educate this kid. So you educate him also by your example, right? You feed them, you start feeding your kid. So that kid is you, and your parents did the best they could based on what they learned and their possibilities and how to raise you. A lot of the times we learn bad patterns, very bad diet, or even bad lifestyles, because that's what we saw when we were growing up, or that was the norm. But that doesn't mean, I mean, I hope whoever is listening to this, if you're an adult, you thank your parents, you say, thank you very much for everything, for carrying me on all the way to here, but you take ownership and you say, well, I am going to take care of my health from now on. If I saw that my mom, for instance, my grandmother was a very sedentary woman, hypertension, diabetes, she just wanted to sit down. and chill and do nothing, watching soap operas like a good Mexican lady.
Yeah.
And didn't want to be involved in eating healthy. I mean, she just wanted to do carbs and more carbs, which, is I'm not saying is bad carbs, but only carbohydrates, which are, just rice and beans and, tortillas and maybe some meat and not many vegetables. Well, eventually we could see that, how she just, her health was deteriorating year after year. And then, but on the other hand, let's say you probably have some example even in your own family. You remember an uncle or an aunt that was always active and eating their portions and eating some, healthy, maybe vegetables. And you notice that they actually had, and I'm not talking about lifespan, how long they lived, but I'm talking about quality of life. Maybe
Yeah.
those, the ones that were more active and they were eating a little healthier, you notice that actually they lived a very good quality of life all the way till the end, until they got very, very elderly. And and I'm sure Salome is also trying to convey to all of you and her audiences, that there's so much that you can do right
That's
now to extend that quality of life that you want. You don't want to live 100 years but be miserable for the last 20. I
that's
mean,
it.
who wants to be extra
That's
20
the
years
thing.
in this world when you cannot even clean yourself, or be mobile,
Yeah.
enjoy your family, enjoy your great grandkids, or whatever it is that is happening in your life at that time. And taking charge of modifying or using this epigenetics, let's say, to your favor,
Yeah.
it's wonderful. It's an opportunity. It's almost like saying that you have a message from angels or from God, telling, take charge of your life
That's
and
it.
start doing what's best, not what you were taught,
Hmm.
even if it goes against being healthy and being thriving for a good, a good life that you deserve. Everybody deserves that.
That's it. That's it. That's it. So, like you're saying, myself, my mom also had diabetes, high blood pressure. Right now, I'm in my 40s and I don't have them yet. So, I'm praying that hopefully what I'm doing will keep pushing things back all the way so that I don't have to turn on that gene because it's directly my mom. So, that means it's right there in the blood. So, if we change things, so like you just said it, we want listeners to know that we don't have to just sit down and admit, oh, I have high blood pressure because my mom had it, my dad had it, everybody had it. That is why I have it. So I'm not going to do anything about it. But there is something that you listening to us could do about it. And even if you have the disease, there are steps that you could take to try to reverse things and deem the switch on
Right.
that genetic for you so that you don't have to blow it all the way out. And like we're saying, it's a quality of life. Even though if you could live a short life, but you want it to the fullest. Right.
Absolutely.
Okay. Dr.
Awesome.
Xochitl, I know we're almost done. I want you to say your last words to my listeners one more time and then we'll call it a day. Thank you so much. Mhm.
Okay. Well, I encourage you, every single one, listen to this, to take charge of, working on yourself. And it's a decision every day. You can start with a little extra vegetables every day in your plate. You can start with maybe doing some supplement that you may need. Get a coach, get Salome to help you if you need more, guidance. Get someone in your life to mentor you, or just to, even a buddy. Try to
Just to
also, a very
motivate you.
important,
Yeah.
exactly, try to build a community around you that it's pro health versus, oh, let's go and get drunk, or do something not as good for our bodies. I think a lot of the times our friendships, and you only know who's around you, are the ones that keep either motivating you to be better and encouraging you to continue to do a good lifestyle, or they could be detrimental. They could be the ones pushing you towards the wrong spot.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying that you don't have your own ways to just say, I'm going to pass. I'm going to pass on the extra serving of cake. I'm going to pass on the extra, I don't know, tequila shots, or whatever it is that it's happening in your community. I think that everybody will eventually when they take charge and they do one thing at a time, exercise, for instance, not everybody is an athlete. It's not that you need to become the super athlete out of the sun. And you
No.
just need to do, as I said, 20 minutes of walking every day. If walking is even something that you don't like, whatever exercise you do, it could be Rumba, it could be dancing with your kids. You can turn on, you can say 5 songs. Everybody gets to pick a song with your kids or with whoever you're around, and you just start dancing goofy or whatever it is. You work your coordination. Any exercise that works for you is the best exercise. Not what you read in the magazine, what you read in the news. Oh, swimming. Well, I don't have a swimming pool, so what do I do? Then I get stuck. I don't get exercise. No, just do something that gets you moving, and then continuously through the day, stay active. If you're in an office and you need to sit down for a long time, stand up once in a while. Put an alarm in your phone and just stand up like every 20-30 minutes. Do little stretches, like do even your spine. If you have access to going to chiropractor or an acupuncturist, to me, a lot of those alternative medicine helps keep a good balance in your body as well.
Yeah.
And you can also look into more information about it. And there are great people also to have more information, resource to keep yourself in health. And just know that prevention is where you should have your focus on, not on treating diseases, because that's already too late. Imagine that you take care of your car before it breaks down, right? You do oil changes, you change the tires, you do all those different things. Same thing with your body. Why is it that we don't do with our body? You know that eventually tear and wear, it's gonna make your body will not work as great, but you can keep it working great if you do all the maintenance that is needed. So I encourage you to continue to take care of your body and all these different ways that we mentioned today. Sleep well, exercise, eat your good food, whole foods as much as you can. Avoid processed food, avoid too much soda or sugary drinks or super sweet drinks. And if you can, get a coach or go to your doctor and find out what supplements will be ideal for you, and get some exercise done. As I say, whatever works for you, that's the best one you should do. Okay.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Xochitl. And those of you listening to us, she touched a little bit on vitamin D and you're wondering, oh, I want to know more about that. Well, we have a video on vitamin D with Dr. Xochitl. You could check it out on this channel. And she's going to be coming back with more information for us, as you could see. So give me a comment. What are you doing to prevent diseases in your life? What is the one thing that you've chosen to do every single day? Put it in the comment below and let us know. And I'm going to put Dr. Xochitl's information too in the comments underneath the video. So if you want to get in touch with her and access specific questions too, you could get in touch with her. Thank you so much, Dr. Xochitl, for your time. It's always a pleasure having you here at Ezra Wellness. Thank you.
Thank you.